Now you know it's being recorded. I was on for about 10 minutes before any of you joined me, and I didn't want that dead space being recorded. So when the recording is made, the things that are on the screen are actually quite easy to see. And so that's beneficial to anybody who couldn't be in the classroom. I'm going to try and stick to the schedule fairly well. So if we get to the end of a day and we've covered everything that I had kind of wanted to cover that day, and we're only 45 minutes into the session, rather than say, oh, we're ahead, let's move on to the next thing, my goal is going to be to ask you questions about the things that we've done, make sure that we're all clear about the material that we've gone through, and I would rather end class early because we efficiently made it through some material rather than stack things on and get you in Zoom fatigue mode. I realize Zoom can be taxing. Nothing has made me more clear about that than the last couple of weeks of faculty workshops of what Zoom fatigue can be. So I'm going to try and do this in a way that gets as much conversation going between you guys in the class and me, and also respect Zoom time such that I try and reduce Zoom fatigue as much as I can. And so I don't think learning over Zoom is ineffective. I think you have to be just pretty thoughtful about what you're doing and why you're doing it in order to make it as effective as it can be.
Yeah.
So if something changes, if the positivity rates from testing in the Kansas City area goes way down, if the overall number of active cases on campus goes down, so we just did COVID testing and we discovered that there are people on campus right now who tested positive. I tested negative, yay. You know, if things change over the semester, I would love nothing more than to see you guys in a classroom. I'm not super optimistic about that happening. So just erring on the side of caution, I want to teach this way to keep you safe, to keep me safe, and to just kind of do our own little part to as a society, try and rein this thing in sooner rather than later. So that's the reason that I'm starting online and will shift to in-person if conditions change. Is that a sufficient answer?
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So the learning outcomes are pretty straightforward. And I think when you put it up against kind of how I described the class, hopefully the class should achieve these things pretty well. So I have these expectations of you, but then you can have expectations of me. You should expect me to be here every day, alert, well prepared. I have to grade your assignments with an even hand and as much fairness as I can muster. It takes time if it's done well. I will do my best to respect you. But I have to do all of that within the context of challenging your thinking about the issues that we're going to be talking about. In the same way that you're recognizing that I'm human and fallible, then I need to afford you the same consideration. And I have to ultimately evaluate your course performance, but that's always independent of my evaluation of you as a human being. In the 20 years that I've been teaching, there have been people that I really did not like that I gave A's to because their performance in my course was exemplary. And I gave people grades that were not very great that I genuinely liked and cared about a lot. So my sense of you as a human being is always separate from my sense of you as in terms of your academic performance. And I want you to know about that up front. So if you see me on a day and it seemed like I'm not firing on all cylinders, you are perfectly free to ask, are you firing on all cylinders? And if not, like what's your excuse for yourself? Because there are going to be days when you're not firing on all cylinders, and I'm going to ask you if you're firing on all cylinders, and if not, you know, kind of what's going on and what can we do to get you kind of back in the game. So there are some new sections of syllabi that you're going to be seeing. There's a classroom community statement that you can read, the Zoom present statement. The mode of delivery for this course is online synchronous. And I've already talked to you about Zoom etiquette. This is what I want you to do for this class. And I've already gone through these things, but they're written down in the syllabus for you so that you can refer back to those. So two texts that you need to have. One is Michael Pollan's Ecology, The Omnivore's Dilemma, which used to be the only book that we had in this class. And so what happened was when I first started teaching this class, I had The Omnivore's Dilemma and Plants and Society. Then to save students money, we got rid of Plants and Society just to have you buy one less book. But we found that that made the learning of plant biology a lot harder for students because they didn't have a text that they could rely upon. So a couple of years ago, I went back to having 2 books. The book that I designated for you, mine came in binder form, so it looks like this. It will help you with the plant biology sections. And then The Omnivore's Dilemma is a book written by Michael Pollan, who's a journalism professor who explored the American food system and wrote a book about it back in 2006. So be here. The attendance policy is just the attendance policy that is in the handbook, the student handbook. If you have accommodations, you need to clear those with Missy Henry. They will send me an email, and then we will work together to make sure that you receive those accommodations. Don't lie, cheat, or steal. Don't plagiarize. We'll talk a little bit about plagiarism as we get ready for your writing assignments. We will collaborate with one another on what the due dates are for the written assignments so that I'm sure that I've given you enough time to succeed on the written assignments. So we'll agree to those on, through a common conversation. But then once that date is set, unless something catastrophically bad happens, those dates will then be when it's actually due. And for written assignments, I generally make those due by 5 o'clock, kind of the end of business, the day that they're due. So you don't have to turn them in class. Plus, all of your submissions are going to be electronic. And so it doesn't really matter if you bring it to class or not, because you're not going to be physically handing me any papers. There's a sexual harassment policy that you should be aware of. I'm sure you've been trained on it because we've been told that you've been trained on Title IX issues at Williamsville College, just as faculty have. Once again, this is just the official language from the faculty handbook. You guys are going to be on computers. All I ask is that wherever you are, that you be paying attention to class stuff rather than playing Angry Birds. Do people even play Angry Birds anymore?
Yeah.
Do they? Okay, all right. Easiest way to get a hold of me is probably via email or making an appointment with me to come by my office, which should also be done via email. Just recognize that I do go home at the end of the day, and I don't necessarily check email at 10 o'clock at night. Sometimes I am, and I'll do my best to get back to you, but if you send it after a certain time in the evening, don't expect to get an email back from me until the next day. In the same way, I won't hold you accountable to anything that I send you after 5:30. I'm not going to send you something at 6 o'clock the night before and expect to have it done by the next day. That would be ridiculous. The drop date is in there at the beginning of November. So some of the things I'm going to want you to do. One thing that you need to do is you need to get a small notebook, spiral notebook or a sewn notebook or whatever. It doesn't have to be terribly big. Actually, smaller, such that it fits in a pocket or a purse, is even better. What I want you to do is I want you to keep a detailed record of what you're eating. And so there's a food journal where you just record what you eat every meal, every day. Every 2 weeks, you'll turn that in. I'll look through it. I'll make some notes and comments on it, and then I will get those back to you. You can either keep it, in an actual notebook, which is actually probably easier, and drop it off at my door every Friday when they're due, or you can keep it digitally. Students in the past who have attempted to keep a digital record have actually had more problems being consistent about it, because if you have a little notebook, it's easy to just whip out the notebook and write it down, and they're less likely to do it if they're keeping track of it in their phone. I'll take electronic or hard copies of it either way, but I'll get them on Friday and I'll return them to you the following Monday so that you can then start the next 2-week period of food journaling. And then every 2 weeks, I will also give you some questions that ask you to reflect about the things that we're talking about in class and the things that you're recording in your food journal. And by Friday, I will have a blogging site set up. I use WordPress. There's an app so you can blog from your phone. And you'll be given a series of questions, and you'll be expected to respond to those questions. You'll be expected to respond to those questions. I should have turned my ringer on my phone off before I came here. On this blog. And you will have to respond to other people's blog posts. So the goal of this is for us to have kind of an ongoing conversation outside of class about the kinds of things that we're talking about in class. And sometimes it'll just be more fun stuff to think about. So the first set of blogging posts are going to be kind of get to know you questions. And so we already know where some of you are from and what you like to do in your spare time. So the first set of posts is going to be about kind of what your food culture is. What's the food culture that you came from? What are your memories of your food culture from when you were growing up and things like this? That allows you to think back on where you've come from in terms of food. And it also allows us to get to know one another a little better. And then sometimes they're going to be focused on other things as we go. But the requirement is that you post twice weekly, and you have to post 2 original posts, and you have to post 2 comments on somebody else's post. And at the end of the day, you either get credit for doing that and doing that well and completely, or you don't get credit if you didn't do it. And so in terms of kind of racking up points to get a particular grade, this is the easiest way to do it, because it just takes a little bit of time. There's no right answer. When I ask you, what was your favorite meal when you were growing up, and what was it about that meal that made it your favorite meal? There's no wrong answer to that question. You just have to answer the question completely, and then you've done that assignment for that week. And so I'll give you instructions on Friday as to how to access that blog, and then I'll also give you the first set of questions. And on Friday, I will expect you to start keeping track of your diet. Questions about food blogging?
So you don't want us to start journaling our food until Friday?
Yeah, there's no need to it. I'll just make all those assignments at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll give you time to figure out a way to do it and get a notebook if you're going to do it in a notebook, all that. So as I said, there's going to be a position paper on genetically modified organisms. And there will also be a short paper on food deserts at the end. And so these are all found in here. So you've got the exams, you've got the GMO paper, you've got food journals. Once again, just turn it in, you get credit for it. There should be 7 of them over the course of the semester. You get 10 points per complete food journal that you turn in. Food blogging, once again, you get 20 points because it's a more involved process. So there are 7 2-week periods, so 140 points for food blogging. There's a pretest post-test. I'll send you guys an email on how to access that. You'll get 20 points for taking the pretest, get 20 points for taking the post-test. So do that, take that seriously. It's one of the easiest ways for me to gauge what you've actually learned in the course by comparing what you knew before you walked into the course to what you knew when you walk out of the course. There's a food desert project that we'll work on towards the end of the semester, which I mentioned. And then at the end of the class, I have a short written self-evaluation for you. That's 820 points if I did my math correctly. Whatever percentage of points you got out of that 820, that's your percentage grade, and that's how it calculates into a letter grade. Any questions about that?
I have a question for the food journal.
Yeah,
Is
who's
it
this?
okay if you put it in your notes, like on your phone or something, or would you rather have like actual journal?
No, you can do that. Once again, just do that religiously, because
Yeah.
when I've had students try that in the past, they've been less consistent about it than people who've done it on paper. But if that's your preferred way of operating, then by all means. And then you just need to save that in a form where you can send it to me every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that works fine.
All right, thanks.
Other questions? All right, the last thing that I need to talk about, absolutely need to talk about today, is the schedule. So that's the wrong semester. So also on the Moodle site is a schedule. It's a day-by-day schedule, and so it should show you, what week we're in, what day we're in. We're talking about the course as a whole. We're not going to get as far as I hope today. On Friday, we're going to talk about how scientists think, and we're also going to talk about why we would have a course about food, because we didn't really get to that today. And then you'll see over here it has readings. I didn't get all of the readings put in for this first body of knowledge, but I'll fill the rest of this out over the next day or two. I've been not as effective at getting the schedule converted over from previous semesters and reviewing the readings and things like that as I hope to, mainly because I spent a couple of days in bed over the weekend and this week because I was stupid on Saturday. So anyway, as I fill this out, I'll post a revised version of this on the Moodle site, but this takes us through the first exam. And so you can see what topics are coming up. You can see what parts of the book that I want you to be reading. When it's chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, all these things on plant biology are from the Plants and Society book. But for Friday, I would like you to read the introduction in chapter 1 of Poland's Omnivore's Dilemma in preparation for class on Monday. And so that's it. You have 3 exams and a final. And that's the 4 exams. And so you can see we go from plant biology into history. We talk about modern agriculture in terms of history. In the context of all that, we end up talking about the economics of food. Then we talk about some sort of current issues about organic food, the ethics of eating meat, which is a chapter in Poland's book. We revisit some economics later on in the end. And then we talk about food deserts at the very end. Questions about that? All right then. Other assignment for class on Friday. Can you see this PowerPoint?
Yes.
Everybody see it? So well, I'll just do it this way. It's going to be as easy as anything else. So normally on the first day of class, I would give you a note card to fill out that has your name, what your preferred name is, what your preferred pronoun is, what your major is, what your minor is, what extracurricular activities you're involved in, what you do for fun, where you're from. We've already covered the last two, and I made notes on a sheet over here. So what I would like you to do for Friday, between now and Friday, is open up your email, give me this information about yourself, and then also answer these questions. Why are you taking this course? What do you expect to learn from the course? What's the last book you read for pleasure? I don't want to see, John Stuart Mill. I can't imagine anybody reading John Stuart Mill for pleasure. When did you read it? I'm interested in whether or not you pay attention to the news. And if you do pay attention to the news, where do you typically get your news? This is just some information that's useful for me as I think about some of our discussions in class. I'll actually post these on the Moodle site after I'm done here so that you don't have to go back and look at the video in order to get these things. I'm still in some ways migrating from being in person to being online as I think about the things that I ask of you. Any questions? All right, so on Friday, we'll talk about why I erected this course and built this course to begin with. And we'll also do some exercises about, we'll do an exercise about one way in which scientists think about issues like food. And so it's a food example. It involves some critical thinking. It involves thinking about numbers and asking questions about those numbers and things people say about numbers. And so that'll be Friday's activity. All right. I guess I'll see you on Friday then. Let me know between now and then if you have any questions or comments or whatever.
I have something actually.
Yeah, Kenton.
I keep trying to download the syllabus and schedule from the Moodle pages, but it's I don't know if so for the syllabus it's not even letting me download. Like it starts the download process, but then says like the file's corrupted. And on the schedule, it just keeps giving me a zip file that isn't leading to any Excel file.
Well, that's weird. Huh? Has anybody else had the same issue? No. I hate to do this. Do you have a laptop that you're doing this on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Bring your laptop by my office and we'll see if we can't figure it out. Oftentimes, you might have some sort of protections that are set up on your computer that are keeping you from doing things. But the easiest way to figure that out is actually gaining access to your laptop.
Yeah. I don't think I have any protection set up that would prevent these sorts of downloads. Like I have pretty, like, I have made the default settings on my Mac more lenient to allow more internet download.
All right, then maybe it's not that. Log out of Moodle, log back in, and then see if it's still giving you the problem. And if it is, I can send you via email the files, but that's ultimately not going to be a long-term fix. We need to figure out a long-term fix.
Oh, hey, how about that? I think it worked.
Just logging in, logging out.
Yeah, just logging. Oh, yeah. The schedule's still doing the weird zip file thing. It just every time I click on it, it's just giving me a new zip file. But
all right, I'll just send you the schedule.
That works. Yeah, I got the syllabus though. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Sure. No problem. All right. See you guys Friday.
Thank you.